Well, okay, I don't have a PlayStation, but there's usually some non-exclusives at State of Play, so let's see what they've got. Oh yeah, the new Tomb Raider remake. I still think the art style looks kinda weird, but I like Tomb Raider. Yeah, I'm excited for this. Ah, crap. Well, at least there's Summer Games Fest. Alright, Jeffy K, what have you got cooked up for us this year? I'm dying to know what the next high guard is. Oh, is this 1666 Amsterdam, that game Patrice Désilets has been trying to make for like 15 years? This looks pretty cool. Oh, for God's sake. Well, I guess there's the Xbox Game Showcase. Okay, Xbox, it would be really hard to disappoint me any harder than I already am, but please, give it your best shot. Is this a new Crazy Taxi? Yeah, I sort of remember Crazy Taxi as a kid. This looks pretty fun and silly. Oh, for fuck's sake, why? Why does this keep happening? Now that's an interesting question, isn't it? So, AI. It's still a thing. Still a thing that's desperately trying to ruin my life. Me, specifically, because I love video games. I love playing them. I love talking about them. They are, in my opinion, the very best medium of art that we as humans have yet created. But gosh, there sure is a lot of slop in the pipes these days, right? It seems like we get a new story like this every week, and from the outside looking in, that seems baffling, because every time it happens, it's met with a giant wall of hatred and backlash. You'd think they'd eventually stop sticking their fingers on the burning stove, but they've not. Why? Well, because the backlash has never worked, or at least very rarely works, especially when trying to push back at industry trends. If the backlash worked, then microtransactions wouldn't exist, physical media would still be alive and kicking, and DRM would be DOA. And yet, no, it doesn't matter if 60 to 80% of gamers are anti-AI, because we're just pigs at the trough. Any corporate executive knows that the customer is always right is bollocks. The customer will eat what they're given. They do not care about ethical or environmental concerns, because it's provably true that if the product is good enough, then people will just ignore that. But that, right there, is where my interest lies. I had eggs for breakfast. I know a thing or two about ignoring ethical concerns. But eggs are tasty. AI isn't tasty. AI is bad. In most of these controversies, like Clair Obscur or Crimson Desert, the reason that the AI was sniffed out is because it looks bad. Yeah, this is what horses look like for sure. It looks weird and distractingly out of place in the game world because AI is bad at doing art. But it goes beyond aesthetic problems. AI can produce stuff that doesn't look like crap. No, the problems are more foundational than that. Chapter 1. Accidents happen.
I think our official statement we said last year around Black Ops 6 is that everything goes into the game is touched by the team 100%. We have generative AI tools to help us, but none of that goes in-game. And then you're gonna say, yeah, but it has. I'll say it has by accident, and that was never the intention. We've come out and been very clear that we use these as tools to help the team, but they do not replace any of the fantastic team members we have that are doing the final touches and building that content to put it in the game. So everything you play, human created and touched, AI tools in the world we live in. It's how do we streamline it? That's really the goal. Not replace, but streamline.
That was a statement by Miles Leslie, Associate Creative Director of Call of Duty Black Ops 7, in an interview with IGN after this art hit the internet in the lead up to the game. And this is a very common sentiment following any of these AI art stories. Sandfall, Pearl Abyss, Ubisoft, and many others have all put out nearly identical statements. The AI art got in there by accident. And that's a weird thing to say, isn't it? Despite what you may have heard, the AI is not a conscious being off doing its own thing. It's a tool somebody used to make this spoopy zombie. That's not really something you can do by accident. And the fact that they think these statements will please anybody shows a total disconnect from their audience. The problem is not that some terrible AI name cards made it into the game. The problem is that they used AI for that at all. That's what people are mad about, not the fact that it looks bad. It looks bad as a consequence of using AI. Because it's not that AI makes bad art, it's that AI is bad at doing art. The process of creating art, the job of being an artist. After the Crimson Desert story broke, a lot of artists and game developers chimed in to say that using AI for placeholder art doesn't make any sense. The point of a placeholder is to hold place. Developers often need to work on technical aspects before the art has been finished, so they'll usually put in something quick, like an MS Paint doodle, or just a random meme to stand in for the thing that they're working on. Placeholders are never supposed to appear in the final product. If you're using AI to generate something that looks like it's supposed to be there, then that's a bad placeholder. That's not what it's for. Not only that, it's less efficient than just doing this. Six-finger zombie Santa here, you don't just one-shot something like this out of an image generator. This was probably prompted at least multiple times to get it looking as almost good as it does. And if it was supposed to be a placeholder, then 2 prompts is already one too many for something that's supposed to be a temporary asset that nobody will ever see. To anyone who understands the process of game development, these statements are nonsensical, which is why the first people to come out swinging against these statements is usually other game developers. It's not only ethical and environmental concerns, you're just doing it wrong. If Pentiment shipped with art that looked like this, that would be a pretty big whoopsie. But that would never happen because no QA tester would ever mistake this for final art. It's often said that AI is a solution in search of a problem, and this right here is a perfect example. For 40 years of game development, placeholder assets were not casually left in final games. There was no problem to solve. But stick an AI in there and suddenly this is happening every other week, creating a new problem where none previously existed. And that's of course making the big assumption that Miles Leslie is telling the truth, and this was an accident. Which is a very generous assumption, because the alternative is that everyone at Treyarch looked at this and agreed that it was acceptable to put in the game. And since I'm assuming that most, if not all of them, have seen a hand before, that can't be right, can it?
At Crystal Dynamics, we see AI as a tool that can help our team get to right answers faster. So let me give you an example of what that looks like. So say in early level development, we have an idea for an object, but we're not sure whether or not we want to take the dev time to build it. We can use a generative AI tool to help us visualize that object in the world, and if it works, we'll then move it to our traditional pipeline. From there, the team will concept it, they'll build it, and we'll make sure that all the finished content in the final game is human crafted.
Not every studio is ashamed of their AI use. Some folks are happy to talk about it, like Jeff here, and that gives us a better inside look at how this is actually being integrated into the artistic process. Badly. Very badly. Once again, if you're familiar with the process of game development, then you might notice that what he just said doesn't make much sense. Fundamentally, he just described concept art. You have a concept for something, you visualize it, and if you like it, you put it into production. That's what concept art is. But then he says that if they like the Gen AI, then they'll concept it. So they're going to concept the concept art? Well, that sounds like adding an unnecessary extra step, doesn't it? If the whole point of this exercise is to save time, then it sounds like you failed, Jeff. Because that process, as you describe it word for word in every single interview, does not sound like it's streamlining anything. It would only streamline the process if you didn't hand the AI art over to the production team, if you just spat it out and left it in there and didn't look back. But you wouldn't be doing that, would you, Jeff?
And so when you kind of drag that generative piece into the engine, does it have scripts attached to it, or is it more so an environmental art tool in that procedure? Like, what's that look like?
Sorry. Wait.
Okay. Sorry, I'm.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. No, hold on.
No,
sorry.
okay.
No, I'm trying to. Sorry. Go ahead.
I think what I'd probably say is I think we've said all we want to say about it now. I think once the game comes out and everyone can see how amazing it is.
Yeah, I did
Probably
really
be more
enjoy
comfortable.
it.
I think at this early moment, I wouldn't want us to start talking about that.
Oh. You know, sometimes not answering a question reveals more than answering the question. But that's okay, we'll just have to find someone higher up the food chain, like, I don't know, Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic. There's a man who loves him some AI, and has very expensive taste in flower pots. That's a clever reference. If you don't get it, here's a video. Epic Games has gone all in on AI. They're adding AI tools to Unreal Engine. They're adding zombie AI Darth Vaders to Fortnite. More on that in Chapter 2. But the thing they've gotten the most flack for is how they've been using AI to generate art for the game. And once again, everyone immediately clocked it, because it looks bad. But Timmy Tim Tam is not like all these other cowards shying away from a controversy. No, he faces it head on. Which is why, instead of denying these claims, he went, yeah, so what? And uploaded a video to the Unreal Engine YouTube channel going in depth on how they use AI in their process. And it is a very interesting watch.
He moves into color blocking, then tightens up, defines her lines, working out the jacket design before moving into Gen Media Bridge. That's one of our internal tools built right into Photoshop. You draw, get assistance, and then paint some more.
Like when 3D artists kick their model to a 3D renderer to get a refined result, the artist here prompts Gen Media with some guardrails to help take the 2D rendering further on his concept. The third pass is solid, but it added a skull to the pouch and some details he did not ask for. He paints those out. The design is king. AI can generate generic stuff all day, but that's not what we're doing here.
So in case you missed what just happened there, the artist specifically put into the prompt, don't change the design. And then, it changed the design. It added a skull, it added an extra patch over here, it added a brown glove which doesn't match the black glove she's wearing on the other hand. It did the one thing it was explicitly asked not to do, and they left that in the video, which means this is the best example they have, and they just keep doing it.
These artists know that if anything changes drastically, it can be fixed manually.
The results are good, but not perfect one-to-one. The tower's boxy instead of tapered, awnings are the wrong color, some trims are missing. That's why it's a starting point, not a finish line. He paints over it in Photoshop and makes it exactly what he envisioned.
He uses that sketch and the orthographic design as reference, runs another generative pass in Nano Banana Pro for a full contextual shot, then paints over that in Photoshop too. Trim colors, awnings, planters, background values to manually bring it back to the original design.
Manually bring it back to the original design. Are you seeing the problems with that statement, Pat? Are you maybe seeing why what you're showing me right now makes no fucking sense? Okay, I think I need to break this down, because you're probably not a professional artist, and AI's biggest trick is that it always looks quite impressive to people who don't understand what they're looking at. So, let's understand what we're looking at. Going from this to this seems like a massive step, but we're talking about professional artists here, some of the most talented people you will ever meet in your life. I'd estimate at maximum, this is about 2 to 3 hours of work, which on the timescale of game development is nothing. But it doesn't matter, because you start eating into that save time when the artist has to go back in and fix all of the stuff that the AI changed. Also, there's some deceptive editing going on here. It's edited to look like he went from this to this in a single prompt, but if you look over at the prompt box, you can see that there's now a completely different prompt in there. If we take a look down at his layers, then we can see that he's done this at least 9 times to get to the point where he still has to change it manually. In fact, we know exactly how long this took because it's a screen recording, so if we look at the corner down here, we can see that about 45 minutes passed between these cuts. Not exactly instantaneous. But that's all ignoring the fact that none of this is even necessary because it's concept art. It's artwork which the 3D artist can use as a reference while they create the actual model. There is no reason for it to look like a finished render. They even show an artist doing this later in the video, working off a rough sketch of this yarn mouse while creating the 3D model, because the point of the concept art is to visualize the concept. Because the important part to get across is the design, not the rendering method. I would presume that the 3D artist making characters for Fortnite knows what a Fortnite character looks like. In trying to demonstrate the utility of AI, they have perfectly demonstrated why using AI in this process is a pointless waste of time. And that's why almost every artist in the industry hates AI. It's not because it can replace them, although they're certainly trying anyway. It's because it can't replace them. It just makes their job way more annoying. The whole point of concept art is that it's fast, it's dirty, it's ideation. That's why it's a totally different field than creating the final assets. It's a completely different skill set. This Week in Video Games interviewed a ton of concept artists about AI, and the overwhelming feedback is not that they don't want to use AI, it's that they can't use AI. It can't do concept art.
Something that I have found difficult for non-artists to understand is that the early messy stuff that non-arty folks insist can be fixed by a human artist later is where the best work is done. You cannot brute force your way to the end conclusion of an idea. You gotta work it out.
No concept artist would choose to work in the way shown in this video, not just for ethical concerns, but because this process doesn't make any sense. You don't add inefficiencies to your process for no reason. You only do that when someone higher up the chain of command is forcing you to do that. And while I can't find any confirmation that Epic is mandating AI use, other companies certainly are, and it's making their artists miserable. Because they trained to be artists, not to babysit a dumbass algorithm who thinks that buckles are skulls. So much of the AI revolution is built on the idea that if you're not learning how to use it now, you're going to be left behind. But this argument ignores that AI isn't useful in most of its proposed applications. It's selling this idea of efficiency where there is in fact no corners to cut.
I see Larian as a studio that clearly values creativity and the craft of game making. I think that's undeniable. However, there's still a workplace, and nearly every workplace right now is grappling with a CEO or a group of managers who've become AI guys intent on solving a problem with productivity that they cannot articulate and that I feel doesn't actually exist.
In their effort to 10x the productivity of the art team, these managers have forgotten the very simple rule that if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. Which is where we get to the actual and by far most popular use of AI art, stuff that isn't worth doing. As of late 2025, around 8,000 games on Steam disclosed AI use. That number has gone up since then, but those are the numbers I have an analysis of. Within those 8,000, about 60% disclosed the use of generative AI to create art assets, making it the most popular use case of AI if you're going to disclose the use of AI. Those numbers do not surprise me, because if you go looking through any storefront right now, you will immediately find it. The slop. Some cheap piece of shovelware garbage with an AI-generated cover and a name that sort of sounds like an actual game. Having a quick look through Steam shows that they're honestly handling it better than some other storefronts that I know. Now, shovelware is not new. Cheap knockoffs have existed for about as long as real things have. But this is where the true AI revolution has happened. Because now, it's easier than ever for some cheap old conmen to hork out some garbage and make a quick buck off of people's gullibility. You absolutely can get AI to generate things that don't look like AI, but these guys don't bother because that would take effort, and these games are the antithesis of effort. So they're all transparently AI because their target audience don't know how to spot the tells or don't care. A few years ago, shovelware devs had to at least have someone on the team with some amount of artistic talent, but with the wonders of AI, that limitation is a thing of the past. And now they're free to flood every storefront with an endless torrent of garbage. And to be clear, AI has not made these games better, it's just made way more of them. This is not exclusive to the games industry, obviously, but people are always telling me that AI is this wonderful transformative technology, so I thought it was important to highlight AI's true cultural significance and legacy. This is the face of the revolution. Oh, also, according to the US Copyright Office, you can copyright unedited AI-generated materials, so these are all mine now. Chapter 1.5 Civil War. One of the most annoying things whenever you try to talk about AI is that AI is a very ambiguous term. Throughout this video, I have and will continue to use AI interchangeably with generative AI, or LLMs, because that's what most people now associate the word with. But in the games industry especially, AI has been used to describe a wide range of technologies and techniques for decades. The code that makes enemies move is AI, upscaling textures is AI, dynamic difficulty adjustment is AI, procedural generation is AI, and so on. If you go into brass tacks, all of these things are quite different, but since its coinage in the 1960s, artificial intelligence has been attached to any technology where you can sort of say the computer is thinking. But enemies in video games are not, and have never been, intelligent. It's honestly better described as a field of study than as a specific technology, like architecture. Everything in a game operates by rules, not just rules for the player, rules for everything. The Goomba will walk all the way to the left until it hits a wall, at which point it will turn around and walk right. We've gotten a lot more complicated than Goombas, but that's still how all enemies work in games. If X, do Y. It's a simulacrum of intelligence, but it's all just code when you get right down to it. Artificial intelligence as a field is all the different techniques to create that simulacrum. Generative AI is one of those techniques, but not the only one, and until about 4 years ago, really not the most important one either. It's the same for procedural generation, like Minecraft. The world is built on a series of rules. This biome has hills that go like this biome can't spawn next to this one, rivers flow like that. Thousands of parameters that all spin up as soon as you start walking. But because these rules are deterministic, it's possible to map everything that will be created from the second you start the world, which is how seed maps work. That right there is what I would say is the fundamental difference between generative AI and all the various things that have been called AI before now. If you understand the logic behind traditional AI, then you know what it will do before it does it. Generative AI is a nonsense machine which breaks its own rules constantly. One of the first counter-arguments to this video I expect to get is that it's silly to argue against using AI in games because AI has always been used in games. It's fundamental to their entire structure. This is a rhetorical tactic that I do not respect. You know what I'm talking about. You know these are two different things. And trust me, actual AI engineers are extremely bitter about the fact that their field of expertise has been thoroughly tainted by generative AI's terrible reputation. And for contributing to that, I apologise, but I've got to meet people where they're at. Chapter 2. Flowers for Claude.
The steady march of artificial intelligence is opening a world of infinite possibilities in gaming, transfiguring NPCs and elevating the player experience. The last few years have seen significant strides in AI, with the future set for transformation. Due to AI, games have enormously evolved in 2024 and keep evolving and adapting alongside players, producing experiences that are more dynamic, immersive, and personalized than ever. As it is, the technology produces vast in-game environments and breathes life into once rigid and predictable NPCs. AI-powered characters can react in real time to players, adapt their approaches, demonstrate high levels of contextual intelligence, and even correct mistakes. In turn, a sense of challenge and unpredictability is created, rendering gameplays more dynamic and stimulating.
The problem with AI art is that art is something a human can do, and as a general rule in any creative field, if an AI can do it, a human can do it better. But that's where some folks will look at this a bit more creatively. What are the things that humans can't do? What is the thing that large language models do? Language. They read and respond to natural language. That's why everyone's so impressed by them, right? You can type whatever into ChatGPT and it will respond in a way that scans as real conversation. And, that sounds like something we could shove into a video game. The pitch here is obvious. Conversations are a large part of video games, especially RPGs. But conversations in video games have inherent limitations. They are not real conversations. You choose from a set number of options from a list or a wheel. Because developers are constrained by the limits of technology, you cannot possibly account for every permutation of a conversation. Until now, with the power of AI. With the power of AI, the dialogue wheel can be a thing of the past in favour of, well, actual dialogue with your human mouth noises. This is the future.
Hey Jen, how are you?
Unfortunately, not so good.
How come?
I'm worried about the crime around here. It's gotten bad lately. My ramen shop got caught in the crossfire.
Well, okay, this is a tech demo from 2023. Why don't we scope out a more recent example?
Oh, hey. You must be Chloe. It's so lovely to meet you, and thanks for taking the time for showing me around this house. I've been looking forward to this.
It is so lovely to meet you too. I'm thrilled you're enjoying the space. There's truly a special energy here, isn't there?
Nope. Still shit. Wonderful. AI NPCs are one of those ideas that sound really exciting as a pitch. What if Mass Effect, but you could have a real conversation with Garrus? On the surface level, that's a great idea, but the more you dig into this idea, the more you hit the fundamental limitations of the technology and the necessary limitations of narrative design. Let's start with the obvious and work our way out. Every single one of these things has permanent residence in the uncanny valley. Voice synthesization is certainly getting better over time, but it's definitely not at the point yet where it sounds even remotely close to an actual person, especially paired with a dead-eyed digital puppet. AI also has what people who care more than me call an emergent personality. And that personality is, across the board, this extremely generous, extremely helpful, therapist plus personal assistant tone. It is possible to work around that, but it requires a shit ton of work. And because AI is AI, it will never be 100% reliable. You will never escape the, pushback. Speaking of a shit ton of work though, this is not as simple as just plugging a chatbot into an NPC. To get these things to work at all is significantly more complicated than the traditional dialogue system, which is just logic trees. If you want to account for every possible input ever, then you have to account for every possible input ever, and that's as hard as it sounds. How do you get the AI to stay in character? How do you stop it from talking about things that it shouldn't know? How do you get it to lie? How do you stop it from just making up nonsense? If you want to create a character who's genuinely believable, these are all problems you have to solve as a baseline before you even decide who this character is. Meaning Machine, one of the studios leading the charge in this technology, has a handy little chart breaking down their process for making this function. In order to get the AI to stay in character, you have to fill it with information relevant to the character and prompt it in a specific way to get the output you need. Or as Meeting Machine puts it themselves, you have to bully it into submission. Which is fine, because it's not alive, but still seems like a very strange requirement of any revolutionary technology. One of the coolest things about programming is that you tell the computer what to do, and then it does that thing. It's pretty foundational to all software. But no, I'm sure this new strategy where you bully the nonsense machine into submission works too. Convey, the company who created the tech demos I showed earlier, and whose mission statement opened the chapter, have another article on their website where they discuss this in a very revealing way.
Dialogue trees, for all their structured simplicity, inherently constrain the narrative experience. Each branch, meticulously crafted, anticipates player responses, guiding them along a finite set of pathways. This approach, while effective in maintaining narrative coherence, inevitably caps the player's exploratory freedom. Encounters with NPCs feel less like genuine interactions, more like navigating a maze of preordained choices. The result? A gameplay experience that, despite its best efforts, often fails to fully mask the seams of its construction. The primary drawback here lies in the static nature of dialogue trees. They can neither adapt to the player's unique conversational style nor accommodate unanticipated inquiries or actions. This rigidity not only stifles player creativity, but also diminishes replay value, as the illusion of choice wears thin upon subsequent playthroughs.
You know, you may not believe this from my calm demeanor, but sometimes I read this stuff and I get very annoyed. Limited dialogue in video games was not a problem to be solved. That was the solution. The first chatbot was invented in 1964. If we wanted to be using chatbots in video games for dialogue, we would be using them. But we've not been using them because it's a bad idea. Here's a fundamental truth of game design that AI evangelists don't seem to understand. Limitations don't exist to stifle your player freedom. They exist to protect you from yourself. You don't get infinite ammo for the BFG, because if you got infinite ammo for the BFG, then you would only ever use the BFG, and then it would lose its impact, and then the game would become boring. If everything fits in the square hole, then everything goes in the square hole, and that's not what the designer or the player actually wants. RPG conversations are not structured like this because they have to be. They're structured like this because after 40 years of iteration, this has landed as the best way to do dialogue, and there's many reasons for that. Conversation is only one part of these games, so having limited choices limits the amount of time you spend on a specific conversation. If a character can run out of dialogue, then you have a hard out from that conversation. You won't spend an hour talking to the shopkeeper because the game designer doesn't want you spending an hour talking to the shopkeeper. But players absolutely will do that if you let them, even when they're not having fun. And as any dungeon master knows, that's a nightmare scenario. The shopkeeper is a low-value character. It's a mechanical interaction and, at most, some small slice-of-life world-building. That's all it should be because you don't want them to draw focus from the characters who actually matter. Every RPG, every story has a hierarchy of characters, but cementing this hierarchy is much harder in an interactive medium, where a player can just screw around with the shopkeeper. The way you stop a player from doing that and sabotaging their own experience is to make sure that there's no options to do that or no incentive to do that. Ideally, both. The story of game design for the last 50 years is a battle between player demands for freedom and game designers' requirements for limitations, because freedom in a video game is always an illusion. You can never do something that the designer didn't allow you to do unless we're talking about mods or breaking things. Or if we're talking about generative AI. If you shove a chatbot into an RPG, then you're throwing off the balance of the entire game. If you can have hours of conversation with every NPC in the starting town, then first of all, why would you? They're medieval villagers, they're not full of interesting things to say. And secondly, if you do, you're going to get really bored of talking to medieval villagers, and then you're going to stop doing it, and then you're going to stop playing the game. And then what was the point of any of this if you can just go on ChatGPT and get the same experience by telling it to roleplay as a medieval villager? This doesn't make any sense from a design perspective or from a player perspective. But we can get even more fundamental. Let me play you 2 clips and see if you can spot the problem.
That Quarian must have something Saren wants. Something worth crossing the Shadow Broker to get.
What else can you tell me about the Quarian?
I'm not sure.
I'm Bloom, your future resistance buddy. Thought we'd hang and see if we click, for our epic duo.
Cool with you?
Actually, I'm having second thoughts about all this. I'm not sure I want to be part of the Resistance.
Whoa, hold on there. It's natural to have doubts, especially when joining a cause like this.
Did you see how frickin' long that took? And I'm not talking about the delay from the AI processing what's been said. I'm sure you can solve that problem by throwing enough data centers at it. No, I mean how long it takes to turn your thoughts into action. Voice controls have existed for a long time now, but the reason that we don't use them for most things is not because we can't, it's because they're a bad and inefficient way to interact with computers. You can press a button infinitely faster than you can say out loud what you want the computer to do. Plus, if you've ever tried to use the eavesdropping Amazon lady, then you know that she sucks 90% of the time. The old school gamers amongst you might remember that we tried this like 10 years ago.
Xbox, go to Titanfall. Xbox, go to Internet Explorer. Xbox, go home.
Right, the Kinect. Whatever happened to that? Oh, it died? It died a horrible, painful death? Ugh. Voice controls were doomed to fail because it doesn't actually save any time, and nobody wants to sit in their house and talk to themselves all day. Okay, well, most people don't want to do that. Also, it's tiring. You have to exert yourself more to say things out loud than to press a button, and your throat gets sore and you have to take breaks and all the rest. And unless you're a world-class typer, then doing it through text is even slower. There's so many reasons this is a bad idea. And again, this is all assuming that it actually works. But it doesn't work. It's bad. It's weird and janky to look at and says bizarre shit constantly, which is why the only thing these things are actually good for is being really funny.
Darth Yoda or Darth Dicker, you ask? Indiana Jones, Darth Yoda would simply use the Force to end Darth Dicker.
Yeah, that's right, Tim. Come back on stage. By far the highest profile example of this tech in action was last year when Epic Games stuck a chatbot into Darth Vader and handed him over to millions of players. It went exactly as you think it would. It was less than an hour before the big Darth was spitting out swear words and racial slurs and telling us all about Skibbity Toilet, because of course it was. That's like the main thing people do with these. The main form of entertainment you can get from a chatbot, if you're not trying to have sex with it, is making it say stupid shit for fun. And look, I'm not immune to a bit of crass humour. It is in fact very funny to hear Darth Vader talk about big booty Latinas.
Emperor Palpatine, is this newfound fascination with big booty Latinas crucial to our success here?
But you see the big booty problem, don't you? Beyond the fact that Fortnite is a 13+ and they just broke their own terms of service, this is a novelty. It's fun to screw around with the AI, but that's it. That's the fun to be had with it. But it's explicitly not the kind of fun that Epic wanted people to have with it. Because what happened next was an arms race as people found more jailbreaks and Epic tried as quickly as possible to patch them out. But then I really have to ask, what did they expect people to do with it? Like, full disclosure, I've never played Fortnite and I don't intend to break that streak anytime soon. But I went through Reddit to see what people were doing with it, and yeah, it's all just messing with it and making it say stupid stuff. It's not like anybody actually thinks this is Darth Vader. They're not going to seriously roleplay with it. It's not good enough for anything other than messing around with. And before somebody jumps down my throat about how this is just the beginning and the tech will only get better and all that, it's been 3 years since that Nvidia tech demo, and the situation has not changed. AI Vader has the same problems as Ramen Man has the same problems as the ones being put out today. These are the fundamental limitations of the technology. To be clear, of all the uses of Gen AI, this is one that I expect will stick around in some capacity. Obviously, I'm not capable of getting invested in these things, but the terrifying popularity of AI companions proves that there is a market for this sort of experience. But if that market exists, then it's going to be for stuff like what Meaning Machine is making. Talking simulators where the entire experience is built around having conversations. I'm sure there is a market for that in the same way that there's still a market for VR and motion controls. But just like VR and motion controls, the fundamental limitations of the technology mean that the idea of this becoming the new normal is dumb. It's a dumb idea. Have Meaning Machine actually cracked it and made something good with this tech? I don't know, the game isn't out yet. But hey, this study they ran with 100 participants who all got to play the game for 20 minutes had a 90% approval rating, because that's how you review games. At least it doesn't look like a sex doll. Small victories. Chapter 3. The Chaos Engine.
People already love to create. They build elaborate worlds in Minecraft, spend billions at craft stores. They write stories, take photos, paint, make music. Most do so not for money or fame, but because creation is fundamental to the human experience. But many creative hobbies have been locked behind years of expertise and technical barriers. Then, AI transformed how we make art, then music, and then video, and now it's about to transform how we make games. Making games has always been hard, really hard. But here's what's different now. Generative AI makes creation fun, not painful. Code gen, controllable video models, 3D gen, music gen, all the pieces have finally come together. For the first time, we can turn pure imagination into immersive experiences without requiring years of technical training.
Now you might be thinking, if you're an AI bro who's somehow still watching this video, that I'm not thinking big enough. This video is about the future, and I haven't even gone to the real future shit yet. Why are we still talking about game studios and development pipelines as if those things still matter? We're talking about an entirely new paradigm here. It's not going to be about studios and developers. No, it's going to be about custom-tailored, AI-generated experiences limited by nothing but your imagination. We've got two potential paths to this wonderful future, so let me start with the one you're probably more familiar with, the wonderful world of vibe coding. Code is the most important part of a video game. You can come up with all the ideas and paint all the fancy pictures you want, but the code is the part that makes the things move. It's pretty foundational. But it's also a very intimidating technical skill, and video games are some of the most complicated pieces of software you can get. It's by far the biggest hurdle you have to cross if you want to try your hand at making video games. It's the hurdle that stopped me. This is one of the main reasons that AI coding has risen to become one of the most enduring hype stories around AI. Despite its many high-profile failures, its ballooning unscalable costs, and the fact that after several years of widespread adoption nobody is seeing any noticeable improvements to productivity, this hype train will not be derailed. And that's because nobody understands coding. To most layfolk like me, coding is basically magic. So when this machine comes along and it can generate functioning code almost instantly, that must mean it's great at coding. But it's a trap. The same trap we fell into back in Chapter 1. AI looks very impressive to people who don't understand what they're looking at. Vibe coding, which is to say letting Claude take the wheel, will allow you to create a game that functions. But writing code is not the same thing as coding, which an AI cannot do. It cannot do the job of software engineering. The game may function, but is it fun? Does it last longer than 5 minutes without crashing? Is it free of exploits? You better hope so, because if it isn't, Claude can't help you fix it. In fact, if you try to use Claude, it will probably just make everything worse. Figuring that stuff out is the hard part of coding, not writing lines of code. One of the talking points which has surrounded AI since all this began is the idea that AI is this great equalizer. That it democratizes art and writing and computer programming by giving everyone equal access to the tools of creation. The idea is, as the vision statement from vibe coding platform Rosebud AI put it, that these fields have previously been locked behind things like technical expertise and talent. But AI removes those barriers, and now it's an even playing field. This is a total misunderstanding of what expertise and talent are. There is no barrier to talent or expertise. The only barrier is time and patience. To skip the part where you learn and hone your craft and jump straight to the end product and assume that you've created something of equal value is insulting and incorrect. When we're talking about artwork, that's a low-stakes claim. Your weird, smooth AI girl is obviously inferior to an actual piece of artwork, but it's not going to do any real-world harm, other than the environmental costs to make it. You can't really say the same thing for creating the system that secures people's email addresses and private messages, or the database of all your company's files. Because if you don't know what you're doing while creating that stuff, then you're probably going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. One of the most important steps in developing anything with code is validation. That's when you, or a peer, or ideally both, read through the code again and make sure it won't break anything before you run it for real. AI produces a lot of code very quickly. Far too much of it and far too quickly to go through it all line by line. So, programmers, actual professional programmers, have been getting a little bit lax with the validation process. And this has led to an uptick across the industry of basically every single kind of bug, glitch, and security hole. And that's professionals using the tools. How do you think the vibe coders who don't even understand what they're looking at are handling this process? They're not. They're just trusting that the AI is a magic box and they don't have to check and they'll all work out great. 1,000 kids all running around with their dad's hunting rifle all ready to fire. They're trying to convince people that laymen can use these tools to build some of the most complicated software it's possible to build. So, how's that working out? really well. It's working out really well. Unless you think I'm cherry picking, that's one of the most popular and highest rated games on Rosebud, so it's actually rose-picked. People keep telling me that AI is an incredibly useful tool, but it would be absurd to hand a rando on the street a hammer and expect him to build a house with it. And the same is true here. These vibe coding platforms are selling a lie. It doesn't matter how much initial progress it might look like you can make, you cannot build a game without learning how to build a game. Unless...
What you're seeing are not games or videos. They're worlds. Each one of these is an interactive environment generated by Genie 3, a new frontier for world models.
Okay, are you ready for the dumbest idea so far? Last year, Google DeepMind unveiled Genie 3, which was released to the public earlier this year. Their newest world model, which allows you to generate full 3D interactive environments the same way you generate video or pictures, and the AI bros lost their goddamn minds. The day after this demo dropped, stock prices across the industry dropped as everyone was absolutely convinced that Google had just nuked the concept of game development with this technology. I mean, did you see this cat? Jumped on a couch. Almost everything around the launch of this thing was hyped to hell and high water, especially by people who haven't actually used it because Google is charging $250 a month for access. There's a good reason for that, which we'll get into, but here's what you actually get for those $250. It will generate a 3D space based in a text description or image, which you can walk around in for 60 seconds. Now, obviously, I don't have $250 to spare. If I did, there would be a LEGO Enterprise D on this shelf. Also, even if I did, no. But luckily, YouTuber Dan Dingle took that sacrifice for us. So, why don't we have a look at what these worlds look like outside of the promotional videos?
Oh my goodness, we're in. Hang on. Oh, I've already fallen off. Okay. This is not good. So, oh jeez. It's kind of laggy. Alright, here we are. This is AI gaming. Holy. Can I at least go through the door? Oh, yes. Sick. The music really matches this game. Dude, this is gaming. This is gaming right here. Oh my god. This is what, okay, I'm in. I'm back in. I lost hope for a while there, but this is what I mean by gaming.
Yep, that certainly is gaming. So despite what you may assume, what you're actually looking at is, counterintuitively, a video generator. To explain this, I want to go back to my absolute favourite part of the reveal trailer.
I can look away and generate other parts of the world. But when I look back, the actions I took are still there.
So I laughed out loud the first time I saw that, and I hope some of you did too, because did he just explain the concept of object permanence as a selling point? Yes he did. In fact, they're really proud of this. This is like the main selling point of Genie 3. Let me pull out the diagrams. When you're playing a 3D game, you're doing this. Somebody built a 3D environment and you're looking at this 3D environment through a digital camera. So when you turn around, the rest of the 3D world is still there. Obviously, because that's how 3D simulation has worked since it was invented. But Genie is not doing this. Genie is skipping building the 3D environment and doing it all in camera. When you press forward, it's generating everything frame by frame using the same predictive model that powers all LLMs. So the real breakthrough of Genie 3 is not that it can produce 3D worlds. It can't. It can only produce the image of 3D environments based on predictive algorithms the same way that all of the video generators do it. No. The real breakthrough is that if you turn around and turn back again, it will generate the same images that were there before. It remembers what's supposed to be there. Which you may recognise as the dumbest, most inefficient way you could possibly render a 3D environment. This is why it costs $250 a month and only lasts for 60 seconds. Because to run one of these things for 60 seconds requires an entire fucking data center on its own. You're generating everything on a pixel by pixel basis, and you can only run it for 60 seconds because that's the maximum amount of memory it can store before the whole thing starts breaking down. It's so absurdly inefficient that Google probably lost money on Dan's $250 subscription. But do you want to know the best part? It doesn't even remember things properly.
What is that? Is that a hedgehog? It's a stone hedgehog. What? Hang on, go down. Yo. I just realized we're doing the one thing that, like, there's already an AI game version for, but that's okay. Looks like this is at least more consistent than AI Minecraft. Although, no. Our stone hedgehog's gone. So sad.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Google has managed to build the most expensive way to make a shitty video game you could possibly conceive of. And people think this is going to replace game engines. It doesn't even do the one thing they said it could do. But you have to concede it's a very impressive first step. No, I don't. It looks like shit and it burns down a rainforest every time you turn it on. This thing should not exist. This may be the most pointless thing that anybody has ever built. There is no practical applications of this technology. There is no world where doing this is more useful than regular 3D simulation because it costs 100 times as much to run and you can't control it. There is no world where it's useful to players as anything more than an hour of novelty. And that's because Google isn't even marketing this as a game engine. That's just a side effect. No. This is an important step on the path to AGI. This is its imagination, bro. This is its mind.
But I think for me, an AGI needs to be embodied and be able to act in the physical world. That's what really excites me. I think that could really improve people's quality of life in any demographic anywhere in the world. And so with that framing, I definitely think this is an important tool. I can't see how an embodied AGI or an AGI that is embodied would be able to operate in any scenario in the world without being able to simulate it, to gather experience and learn from its own experience. Because that's the paradigm that we've used in other settings to get superhuman capabilities or even just robust capabilities. And so I believe very strongly that we need simulation. And I also believe very strongly that we won't be able to build a simulator of the real world any other way. So when you combine those two things, I think, yes, it is a big step for my version of AGI.
That was meaningless. What he just said there was tech bro word salad. Embodied AGI will use these simulations on this paradigm to get superhuman capabilities. What capabilities, Jack? Kermit with an AK-47? What the fuck are you talking about? Of course, that little spiel is not for me, somebody who understands that AGI is a marketing term with no clear definition. It's for the investors. Gemini was getting shown up by the bigger AI bros and they had to pull something out that proved they were still in the game. So they spend billions of dollars on a demo that looks really impressive if you don't understand how it works or what it can do. And they fell for it. Hook, line and sinker, as they always do, because they're morons with no understanding of the technology they're investing in. They're just hoping that because they don't understand it, it's their ticket to billions of dollars. It's a farce. Chapter 3.5. But what about... AI is bad at music. AI is bad at sound design. AI is bad at voice acting. AI is bad at writing. AI is bad at translation. AI is bad at 3D modeling. AI is bad at animation. AI is bad at post-processing. Whatever you're thinking of, whatever part of the creative process you think can be replaced by a chatbot, AI can't do it. To borrow an observation from a friend, a dog can't fucking play basketball, no matter how hard they try to convince you that it can. Listen to any of these people talk about their craft, the way they think about it, the emotion they put into it, the knowledge they've gained over their years of experience, and you will immediately understand that they are the valuable part of the process, not the end product. AI can only give you the product. It cannot give you the art. If only it was so easy to separate the two. Chapter 4. Red Ring of Death.
If you look at a game like Fortnite, we've been improving the game constantly with a large development team for 9 years now. Epic has invested billions of dollars into building an awesome content base, not only for ourselves, but for creators too. Now imagine being a startup which has 100 people, investor funding, and you have to launch a game that can appeal to a gamer audience that also has Fortnite available. So these tools are a great equalizer, and if gamers deny those developers access to the best tools that enable them to make the best games most efficiently, all of those companies will die because they just can't compete. There will always be the exceptions. Once in a while, a small team comes along with an amazing creative breakthrough and it succeeds, but overall, economically, it's not going to happen. And if these teams can't use better tools more efficiently, then they're never going to be able to compete with the incumbents.
Oh, Timothy Swimothy. If only it were that simple. The games industry is doing bad. It was doing bad long before AI showed up on the scene. When I was a kid, a mere 15 years ago, the big studios were putting out a game every other year. But since then, game budgets and development cycles have just been getting longer and longer, to the point where it now takes hundreds of millions of dollars in 5 to 7 years to make a AAA game. There's a lot of reasons this has happened. Jason Schreier, who makes YouTube videos now, by the way, has a good series breaking it down. One of the big ones is chasing new technology, pushing graphical fidelity further and further. The more you push graphical fidelity, the longer it takes and the more expensive it is. 25 years ago, making a crave tomatoes meant modelling a box and then painting a red mushy texture on it. Now it means modelling every tomato individually and then adding physics and lighting to all of them when the player knocks over the crate and they spill all over the floor. You can cut as many corners as you want, that's just going to take longer. But this was okay, because these big games still made money, because as a general rule, big games make a crapload of money. Between 2015 and 2021, the games industry had its biggest growth years in history. Consumer spending more than doubled over those 6 years, culminating in an eye-watering $180 billion spent in 2021. But then, in 2022, something really, really scary happened. The number went down. Zoomed out completely, you can clearly see that this is COVID. Everyone was locked in their house with nothing to do, so video games surged, and when the lockdown was over, the trend line fixed itself back to pre-COVID numbers. But unfortunately, your brain doesn't work like the stock market, because the important chart is this one. Venture capital investment in video games surged alongside the COVID boost, and then dropped correspondingly when it was over. But this one did not come back, because venture capitalists are skittish wee puckers. To explain why this matters, I have to break some of your assumptions about how businesses work. You probably think that a company makes something, you pay for that thing, and then they use that money to make the next thing, right? No. Games cost a shitload of money to make, because people need to eat, and teams for big games are really big. You need to pay all of those people long before the game comes out. That's your investment. You're paying all of these people up front with the expectation that you will make your money back when the game comes out. So when you buy a game, most of that is not profit for the company. Most of it goes back into recuperating the cost that went into making the game. And once that recuperation is met, most of that money is not going to the company, it's going to the investor who now wants the return on his investment. That's capitalism. You've got to spend money to make money. But then we hit that drop in 2022, and the investors get spooked. Not because they didn't make money, they still made hundreds of billions of dollars, but they didn't make as much money as they thought they were going to make. This is what the projections were, continued growth. Instead, things more or less stabilized. And that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. I know stabilizing at $190 billion a year doesn't sound bad, but that's because you're a normal person, and these are not normal people. These people invested in games because they wanted more. They didn't get more, so they jumped to the next shift. That's what they do. And now we're facing the repercussions, hence the mass layoffs. During the COVID boom, studios got reckless. They had all this extra investment money, and they spent it. And now that that investment is gone, They can't afford it anymore, so they are shedding people in an effort to make their graphs look better so they don't lose even more investment. It's not because they're being replaced with AI. That's just a lie to make mass layoffs somehow seem like the sign of a healthy industry. It's because they banked on an unsustainable growth curve that didn't happen, which is how they can be making billions of dollars and yet somehow not able to pay people. Capitalism is really dumb. But there's more going on here than just COVID. I think focusing on the numbers, we sometimes forget what we're actually talking about. So let me put it like this. Think about the last decade of gaming, 2016 to 2026. What was the big innovation, the big revolution of this era? If I had to pick, it would be live service. Fortnite came out in 2017 and shaped the financial model that every other studio has been trying to replicate. Beyond that, not much has changed. Assassin's Creed from 10 years ago looks about the same as Assassin's Creed today. Nothing has usurped live service as the next big craze. Video games are noticeably slowing down. You've probably heard before that most technology advances in S-curves. It's a useful model for a bunch of stuff. It starts off slow and then there's a period of massive growth and development, and then eventually it slows down again once we've basically figured out what this technology is and how it fits into our society. And at that point, the line is still technically going up, but it's slow and gradual. For most of my life, and probably most of yours too, we've been on this part of the curve for video games, but it's becoming increasingly clear that we're now here. We're at the point where this is what video games are. Everyone in the world who could get into video games is now into video games, and the technology advancements are becoming increasingly minor. I know it was a whole culture war thing or whatever, but at the point where we're discussing the accuracy of the peach fuzz on a woman's face, there's not much fidelity left to Fidel, and that was a few years ago now. This is what's known as a mature market, which is to say it's no longer a growth market. The spending has reached an equilibrium and innovation has slowed down. You've reached the point where this is what the thing is now. Like, there's not a lot of innovation and growth in the dairy industry. That's a mature market. Just like that delicious mature Scottish cheddar. Hashtag not sponsored. Although if I was going to take one. This might sound obvious. There's a finite amount of people in the world, so of course the industry can't grow forever. Eventually it has to hit a plateau, just like every other business. Eventually you have found all your customers. But if you set up your entire business model on the idea that this growth rate will continue forever, if your entire ideology is that growth is the only thing that matters, then this is terrifying. If you need the line to keep going up forever, then you'll start flailing, and you'll start getting desperate for anything that can prove that we're not here, we're still here! And they've been flailing for a while now. Remember a few years ago when all the big studios got really into NFTs? They were hoping that in-game marketplaces and real money stores were the next big growth sector. Obviously, that didn't happen, and they lost a bunch of money. And then, into those murky waters comes the silver bullet that is AI. Remember when I said that all of those investors jumped to the next ship? You get 3 guesses for which ship they jumped to. AI is the perfect, most poisonous pitch for an industry facing the end of its growth era, because AI's entire pitch is that it's the next revolution. It will increase productivity 100-fold, it will open entire new markets and completely change the way games are made, and this, that, and whatever. That is what the AI companies are selling. We started by asking, why does this keep happening? Why do AI companies keep tripping over themselves to get dunked on for using AI? Well, this is why. They don't want to accept that the line has stopped going up, and they are looking at AI to save them. But it won't. Even if AI could do all of the things they say it can do, and it could replace programmers and artists and all the rest, that still wouldn't solve the actual problems with modern game development. Luke Dickin, the former head of AI at Take-Two Interactive, did a great interview a few weeks ago where he laid it out like this.
I think we should look at why development costs have ballooned in order to know what the solutions might be. Sure, certain types of games have gotten bigger over time, and player expectations in some genres have gotten higher. But how many projects do you hear about that have gone through multiple resets and pivots where leadership has wandered off at a tangent for years in some cases? It doesn't matter if you're moving at 50 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour if leadership is taking the project in the wrong direction. how much of that ballooning strained cost was actually spent building the thing that shipped? It's really easy to start pointing at artists and engineers and saying AI can do their jobs faster and that will keep costs down. But is that where the bottleneck actually is? I'd argue that in a lot of cases, it isn't. It's that teams are building stuff that frequently gets thrown away and their time and value is being wasted. Gen AI can make those inefficiencies less impactful, I guess, but the bottleneck isn't the people doing the work, it's the people telling them what work to do. No amount of automated asset generation is going to fix a broken steering wheel.
Studios are forcing AI onto their developers and shoving it into their pipelines and desperately experimenting with the technology to try and find some kind of use case for it, because if they can't, if none of this works, then they're completely fucked. I mean, no, they're not fucked, they're still making billions of dollars, but they're not making infinite billions of dollars. Which, if you're a hyper-capitalist who doesn't care about people or products or anything but a line going up on a graph, is the same thing as being fucked. And they will happily burn this industry to the ground in the pursuit of that infinite growth. But eventually, this AI bubble is going to pop. The longer it doesn't, the worse it's going to be for all of us. But it will pop eventually. And when that day comes, there will be a reckoning. Chapter 5. Reboot.
Where the optimism lies for me is that this industry wasn't built by corporate interests. It was weird little guys making stuff that captured people's imaginations first, and there's still a lot of us around. I think a lot of people have forgotten that before Minecraft was part of the Microsoft juggernaut, it was just a couple of folks in Sweden with a neat idea they wanted to explore. And it's just one example of a real common trend. Corporations rarely make the first of anything. They buy it up pretty often, or they clone it, and they'd very much like you to forget that they didn't actually make it themselves in the first place. But true innovation can't be stopped, and it doesn't rely on them. That's pretty exciting.
So it may shock you to hear this after watching this entire video, but I'm more optimistic than not. In the long term. In the short term, things are looking pretty grim. I mean, when a third of the industry is out of work, it's already looking pretty grim. But we will eventually hit the bottom, and when you hit the bottom, the only direction to go is back up again. And I have faith that this is the kick in the balls necessary to get this industry pointed back in a healthier direction. For example, one thing that all of this has triggered is that union organisation and union support across the industry has never been higher. Workers across the industry and beyond have been finding ways to sabotage forced AI rollouts. And public anti-AI sentiment has only been getting stronger each year. The AI strategy has been to shove it down every facet of our lives until we're so overwhelmed by it we don't have the energy to fight back. But the strategy is not working. It's only widened the net of people radicalised against it. Because no matter how much they insist otherwise, people care about art. People care about creativity. People care about people. I have optimism because I have faith in people. No matter how hard they try, they cannot kill the human drive to creation. AI games are not the future, but human games always will be. Thank you for watching, and a very special thank you to my wonderful patrons for your continued support. I'd also like to extend an extra special thank you to everyone who lent me their voices for this video, but especially my friend Cal the Skeleton for putting up with many rants and keeping me sane while researching and writing this video. This video could have had a lot more shouting in it, let's put it that way. I have many other rants about AI if you're interested, and you probably are if you're still here, so here's a few. Now I'm gonna go sleep.